In the name of Anna, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Living, the bringer of plurabilities, hallowed be her eve, her sing-time sung, her rill be rung, unhemmed as it is uneven. Her untitled Mama Festa memorializing the Most Highest has gone by many names at disjointed times. Thus, we hear of the Augusta Angustissimos for Old Sea Beast's salvation, Rockabill Booby in the wave trough, here's to the relics of all decencies, Anastasia's rise to notice, Nickel down Daddy Gun and a Reichswehr cannon, my golden one and my silver wedding, Armory Treestem and Icy Sisul, Sether Sawyer till a stream, Ik Dik Dope Dope et Tu Mihi Mihi, by birthplace for a bite. Which of your yesterdays mean ye tomorrow? Hobigan the Hebrewer hit Waterman the brained. Arcs in his ceiling fleet chinks on the floor. Rebus the Hibernicis, the crazier letters, groans of a Britaness, Peter Peepler picked a plot to pitch his popolin, an apology for a big, some such noun as husband or husboat or hosebound is probably understood, for we have also the plutoplephoric, my hoon's boot hands bads a journey to Portugal gone, and he never has the hour, ought one to visit one, for arcs the zoo, Cleopatra's needlework picturing Aldborough hem on the Sahara with the combing of the camels and the parlor maids of Egypt, cock in the pot for father, plaisir vestre, a new cure for an old club, where potentos they'd grow gunder, how I'd wish I was a geese, gentle netties, thrust him not, when the myrtles of Venice played to Glaucus's line, to plench me high he waves children on friends, Ormond's queue visits Amon Mart, even though I, Granny a bee, he would fain me cuddle, 20 of chambers, weighty 10 beds and a one-seater room, I led the life, through the boxer-coxer rising in the house with the golden stairs, the following fork, he's my O Jerusalem and I'm his Po, the best in the west, by the stream of Zemzem under Zigzag Hill, the man that made his mother in the Mulberry train, try or tal on a taub, the log of Annie to the base all, Nopper tipped a nappy wank to his naughty little dancy girls, Brizzes Oral, the king of orals, Intimia Minilisp of an Extoria monologues, drink to him, my jockey, and dolt be mine thy winnowing sheets. I ask you to believe I was his mistress. He can explain. From Victrolia Nuancy to Albard Nuancy. Da's a daisy, so gimme your Hansel too. What Barbara's done to a barrel organ before the rank, tank, and bombtail. Husky at mortal. What Jumbo made jealous and what Anna said to him. Ophelia's culprins. Here Hubty Hublin. My old Dunsk. I am older nor the rogues amongst which I slips, and he calls me his duel of Ayesha. Supports a ventriloquist marries a corpse. Laps for Finns this funny coon's week. How the buckling shot at Rush in January. Look to the lady. From the rise of the Dutch pub public to the fall of the Potstee. Of the two ways of opening the mouth. I have not stopped water where it should flow, and I know the 29 names of Attrayant. The Tortor of Tory Island trades Galatia like his milch cow. From Abbygate to Crowerley through a lift in the Lude. Smocks for their graces and meaunt for them clodshoppers. How to pull a good horoscope even when old sire is dead to the world. In the gleam of Waterloo. Farther he succeeded to my aspirations. These steps forward, 2 stops back. My skin appeals to 3 senses, and my curly lips demand column kisses. Gage Street on a cranny savings. Them lads made a trion of battle watchers, and they totties a doit of deers. In my lord's bed by 1 whore went through it. Mom, it is all over. Cowboy ride by 12-acre terrace in the unique estates of a Mexican. He gave me a thou, so I served him with thee. Of all the white torsos in all the white glen, O Donna, white Donna, he's you to me cry. I'm the stitch in his basque side, you'd be naught without mum. To keep the huskies off the hustings and picture pets from lifting shops. Norska, Torska, find the pottle. He pursed me here with the ardor of Autonoworks. A boob was weeping, his mower was reaping. O Laughlin, up from the pit of my stomach, I swish you the white of the morning. Anglo-Indian meadowlace from Tominey Moor. The great Polynesianal entertainer exhibits Ballantine Brouchins with the link of natures. The mimic of Meg, Neg, and the Mackies. Entered as the lastest pictorial and my purid yokel at Stitchener's Hall. Siegfield Follies and or a Gentleholm's Faux Pas. See the first book of Jealousy's Pessim. The Suspended Sentence. A pretty brick story for child-sized heroes. As low our sleep. I knew I'd got it in me, so that settles that. Thunderbolt, Captain Smith, and La Belle Sauvage Pocahontas. Wait for that week, Wellikins Doshter Marian. The last of the Fingalians. It was me egged him on to the stock exchange and lent my dutiful face to his customs. Chi-Chi Shields on their China Micton. Picked me up Peters. Lumpty Tum Tumpty had a big paw. Pimp Pimp, Pimp Pimp. Measly Ventures of 2 Lice and the Fall of Fruit. The Folks Family Interior. If my spread eagles wasn't so tight, I'd loosen my corsets on that bunch of Maggie straps. Alalosha Popofets and How He Cotch Me Eye. Seen Apples and Thin Dyed. I beg you to be leaves from love and mother. Fine's fault was no felon. Exat Delvin rent her life. The flash that flies from Wuggy's eyes has set me hair on fire. His is the house that Malt made. Divine views from back to the front. Abe to Sayre stood Isaac neuter till Bram talked him common sex. A nibble at Eve will that bowel relieve. All 4 guineas, sounds and compliments libidus. 7 wives awake a week. Airy Ann and Berber Blood. Amy licks porter while Huffy chops eats. A brace of umbrellas or a triple of canes. Butt butter bust. From the Manor-Lord Hove to the Mrs. O'Molleys and from the dames to their sames. Many festoons for the colleagues on the green. An outstanding back and an excellent half-centre if called on. As tree is quick and stone is white, so is my washing done by night. First and last only true account all about the honorary Merceau Vicar LSD and the snake nuggets by a woman of the world who can only tell naked truths about a dear man and all his conspirators, how they all try to fall him by putting it all around localisot about privates Irvika and a pair of sloppy sluts plainly showing all the unmentionability falsely accusing about the raincoats. The protein form graph itself is a polyhedron of scripture. There was a time when naive alphabeters would have written it down the tracing of a purely deliquescent recidivist, possibly ambidextrous, snub-nosed probably, and presenting a strangely profound rainbow in his, or her, occiput. To the hardily curiosing Entomophilus, then, it has shown a very sex mosaic of nymphosis, in which the eternal chimera hunter, Oreolopos, now fond of sugars, then leaf of salts, the sensory crowd in his belly coupled with an eye for the goods truth bewildered blissed by their night effluvia with guns like drums and fondlers like forceps, persequestulates his Vanessas from floor to floor. Somehow this sounds like the purest Cedulion, wherein our Madonna Crucian of Laulor is rich. Also he rue from us in a kitchen not darkness, by hazard and worn rolls reared. We must grope on till zeroth hour, like pow-owl jowers as we are, would we solve aught of moments for our eyesore today. Amusing though not but. Closer inspection of the bordereau would reveal a multiplicity of personalities inflicted on the document or documents, and some prevision of virtual crime or crimes might be made by anyone unwary enough before any suitable occasion for it or them had so far managed to happen along. In fact, under the close eyes of the inspector, the traits featuring the chiaroscuro coalesce, their contrarieties eliminated. In one stable somebody, similarly as by the providential warring of heart-shaker with housebreaker, and of dram-drinker against freethinker, our social something bowls along bumpily, experiencing a jolting series of prearranged disappointments, down the long lane of it's as semper as Oxhouse Humper, generations, more generations, and still more generations. Say, Baron Lausador, who in Hall Hagel wrote the darn thing anyhow? Erect, be-seated, a mountebank, against a party wall below freezy grade, by the use of quill or style, with turbid or pellucid mind, accompanied or the reverse by mastication, interrupted by visit of seer to scribe or of scribe to sight, atwixt two showers or a toss of a trike, rained upon or blown around by a right-down regular racer from the soil, or by a two-paned whittle-wit laden with the loot of learning? Now, patience. And remember, patience is a great thing. And above all things else, we must avoid anything like being or becoming out of patience. A good plan, used by worried business folk who may not have had many momentums to master Kang's doctrine of the Miang, or the propriety code-struces of Capri Mastimus, is just to think of all the sinking fund of patience possessed in their conjoined names by both brothers Bruce, with whom are incorporated their Scotch Spider and Elberfeld's calculating horses. If after years upon years of delving in ditches dark, one tub-thumper more than others, Kinnihown or Canahan, Jardana or mere Misan Manuja, has got up for the darn all same purpose of reassuring us with all the barbar of the Carriagee house that our great ascendant was properly speaking 3 syllables less than his own surname. Yes, less. That the ear of John Earwicker aforetime was the trademark of a broadcaster with wicker local jargon for an aces patent. Here, calls, everywhere. Then as to this radio-oscillating epi-epistle to which, cotton, silk or samite, cohol, gall or brickdust, we must ceaselessly return, whereabouts exactly at present in Siam, Hell or Tophet, under that glory soul which plays tour loop with us in this Aladdin's cove of our sagacity, is that bright so and such to slip us the dinkum oil? Naysayers we know. To conclude purely negatively from the positive absence of political odia and monetary requests, that its page cannot ever have been a pen product of a man or woman of that period or those parts, is only one more unlooked-for conclusion leaped at, being tantamount to inferring from the non-presence of inverted commas, sometimes called quotation marks, on any page that its author was always constitutionally incapable of misappropriating the spoken words of others. Luckily, there is another cant to the question. Has any fellow of the dime-a-dozen type, it might with some profit some dull evening quietly be hinted, has any usual sort of ornery josser, flat-chested, 40-ish, faintly flatulent and given to ratiocination by syncopation in the elucidation of complications, of his greatest Fang-Yang dynast descendants, only another the son of, in fact, ever looked sufficiently longly at a quite every-way-looking stamped addressed envelope? Admittedly, it is an outer husk. Its face, in all its featureful perfection of imperfections, is its fortune. It exhibits only the civil or military clothing of whatever passion-palette nudity or plague-purple nakedness may happen to tuck itself under its flap. Yet to concentrate solely on the literal sense, or even the psychological content of any document, to the sore neglect of the enveloping facts themselves circumstantiating it, is just as hurtful to sound sense, and, let it be added, to the truest taste, as were some fellow in the act of perhaps getting an intro from another fellow, turning out to be a friend in need of his, say, to a lady of the latter's acquaintance, engaged in performing the elaborative ancestral ceremony of upstairs, straightway to run off and vision her plump and plain in her natural altogether, preferring to close his blinkheart's eyes to the ethical fact that she was, after all, wearing for the space of the time being some definite articles of evolutionary clothing, inharmonious creations, a captious critic might describe them as, or not strictly necessary or a trifle irritating here and there, but for all that, suddenly full of local color and personal perfume, and suggestive, too, of so very much more, and capable of being stretched, filled out, if need or wish were, of having their surprisingly like coincidental parts separated, don't they know, for better survey by the deft hand of an expert, don't you know, who in his heart doubts either that the facts of feminine clothing are there all the time, or that the feminine fiction, stranger than the facts, is there also at the same time, only a little to the rear? Or that one may be separated from the other? Or that both may then be contemplated simultaneously? Or that each may be taken up and considered in turn apart from the other? Here, let a few artifacts fend in their own favor. The river felt she wanted salt. That was just where Brian came in. The country asked for bear's paw for Din-Din, and boundin' a-boundin' it got it surly. We, who live under heaven, we of the clovery kingdom, we Middle Seas people, have often watched the sky overreaching the land. We suddenly have. Our isle is Sange. The place. That stern chuckler, mayhappy, mayhap not, once said to repetition in that Lutheran conservatory way of his, that is it a chapel as Italukin was the one place. Ult out nult, in this mad while of tears, whose vertures yellowed there ever Phaeton parks his car, while its tamelized tay is the drame of Drainophilias, where the possible was the improbable, and the improbable the inevitable. If the proverbial bishop of our holy and undivided, with this me can or no me can, zot is the quistune, havermashed his toenails on the head, we are in for a sequentiality of improbable possibles though possibly nobody, after having grubbed up a lock of cold corn above his subject, probably in Aristoteles or the Vivle, will go out of his way to applaud him on the unbiased back of his remark, for, utterly impossible as are all these here events, they are probably as like those which may have taken place as any others which never took person at all are ever likely to be. Han. About that original hen. Midwinter, Frur or Kur, was in the offing, and Premver a promise of April when, as Kishabriji sang life's old sad song, an ice-clad shiverer, merest of bantlings, observed a cold fowl behaviorizing strangely on that fatal midden or chip factory or comical-bottomed copstute, dump for short, afterwards changed into the orangery, when in the course of deeper demolition, unexpectedly one bushman's holiday at Slyman threw up a few spontaneous fragments of orange peel, the last remains of an outdoor meal by some unknown sun-seeker or place-hider illico way back in his mist-ridden past. What child of a strand looper but keepy little Kevin, in the despondful surrounding of such sneezing cold, would ever have trooped up on a street that was called straight, a motive for future sanctity by euchring the finding of the Ardach chalice by another highly innocent and beach-walker, whilst trying with pious clamour to wheedle Tipperaw, raw, re-raw potatoes out of New Zealand in spite of the patch purple of the massacre. A duel to die today. God damn and bigod, sticks and stanks of most of the Jacobiters. The bird in the case was Belinda of the Dorans, a more than quinquagenarian, Tertius Prize with Cerny Medal, Cheapalissy's Hain Exposition, and what she was scratching at the hour of clocking 12 looked for all this zogzag world like a goodish-sized sheet of letter paper, originating by transship from Boston, Massachusetts, of the last of the first to Dear, whom it proceeded to mention Maggie well and all at home's health well, only the hate turned the milk on the Van Houtens, and the general's elections with a lovely face of some born gentleman, with a beautiful present of wedding cakes for dear thank you Christy, and with grand fun for all of poor Father Michael. Don't forget unto lives, and Maggie, well, how are you, Maggie, and hopes soon to hear well, and must now close it with the fondest to the twins, with 4 cross kisses for Holy Paul, Holy Corner, Holy Poly, Holy Island. P.S. from Locust may eat all, but this sign shall they never. Affectionate, large-looking Tash of Ch. The stain, and that a tea stain, the over-cautelousness of the master-bilker here, as usual, signing the page away, marked it off on the spout of the moment as a genuine relic of ancient Irish pleasant pottery of that Lydia-like languishing class known as a hurry-me over the hazy. Why then how? Well, almost any microphotoist worth his chemicots will tip anyone tossing him the teaser that if a negative of a horse happens to melt enough while drying, well, what you do get is, well, a positively grotesquely distorted macromass of all sorts of horse-happy values and masses of melt-while horse. Tip? Well, this freely is what must have occurred to our missive. There's a sort of a terp for you. Please wisp off the grass. Unfilthed from the busher by the sagacity of a look-me-little, like-me-long hen. Heated residence in the heart of the orange-flavored mud mound had partly obliterated the negative to start with, causing some features palpably nearer your packer to be swollen up most grossly, while the farther back we manage to wiggle, the more we need the loan of a lens to see as much as the hen saw. Tip? You is feeling like you was lost in the bush, boy. You says, It is a puling sample jungle of woods. You most shouts out. Be sick at me for a stump of a beech if I have the paltriest notions what the forest here all means. Gee up, girlie. The quad gospelers may own the Targum, but any of the Singari schoolerim may pick a peck of kindlings yet from the sack of old Hensane. Lead, kindly fowl. They always did. Ask the ages. What bird has done yesterday, man may do next year. Be it fly, be it moult, be it hatch, be it in agreement in the nest. For her socio-scientific sense is as sound as a bell, sir. Her volucrine auto-mutativeness right on normalcy. She knows. She just feels she was kind of born to lay and love eggs. Trust her to propagate the species and whoosh her fluffballs safe through din and danger. Lastly, but mostly, in her genetic field, it is all game and no gammon. She is ladylike in everything she does and plays the gentleman's part every time. Let us auspice it. Yes, before all this has time to end, the golden egg must return with its vengeance. Man will become dirigible. Ague will be rejuvenated. Woman, with her ridiculous white burden, will reach by one step sublime incubation. The main wanting human lioness, with her dishorned discipular man-ram, will lie down together publicly, flank upon fleece. No, assuredly, they are not justified, those gloom-pourers, who grouse that letters have never been quite their old selves again, since that weird weekday in bleak Genevieve. Yet how palmy date in a waste oasis, when, to the shock of both, Biddy Doran looked at literature. And she may be a mere Marcella, this midget Majesty, mistress of ours, but it is not a hear or say of some enormous letter, signed Toga Gerilis, teasy dear. We have a cop of her fist right against our nosy bows. We note the paper with her jotty young watermark, Notre Dame du Bon Marché. And she has a heart of Erin. What lumilils as she falls with her Folimineers and her Nadia knots. As a straw will shaw, so does the wind blake, recting to show the rudess of a rober, curling and shewing the fancies of a frisette. But how many of her readers realize that she is not out to dizzle-dazzle with great uncoutrement of post-Mantuan glossaries from the Lapins and the Griggs? Nothing's on her wild life. Grab a good and grandy for old Armenian etymologists like Dorio Morius and Sovotri Mazarov Merav Meruvian. The Mizzen. She feel plain played one flat fact thing, and if, last ways, first wise, a man alones, she ni anyone so tharas has no rates to done a kick at, with anyone anacast about tutus milking force, and the rereus on the outer end ask him the tutus to be forrarder. Think crookly X in every pasture 6 dicks lixens him around hers the magger by king can with down mind looking gated. Mesdames, Mademoiselle, Messerf, s'il va paix. All Schwanz, Schweiz, ich tell the cock's truth about him. Kapak kapuk. No minces matter. He had to see life foully, the plague and the smut, Schweiz. There were 3 men in him, Schweiz. Dancings, Schweiz, was his only 2 feebles, with apple harlots, and a little molefogels. Specially, Schweiz, when they peaches. Honey's walk Emilia paints. Yours very truthful. Add dapple in. Yet it is but an old story, the tale of a tree stone with 1 Isolde, of a mons held by tent pegs and his pal waterroots on the run. What catman could, but bad man wouldn't. any Genua man against any Venice, and why Kate takes charge of the waxworks. Let us now, weather, health, dangers, public orders, and other circumstances permitting, when perfectly convenient, if you police, after you, police, pardoning mine, ich bin so fresh, hey? Drop this jiggery pokery and talk straight turkey as meat to mate. For while the ear, be we Michaels or Nicholists, may sometimes be inclined to believe others, the eye, whether browned or no-lensed, finds it devilish hard now and again even to believe itself. Habes aures et num videbis? Habes oculos ac mane palpabunt? Tip. Drawing nearer to take our slant at it, since after all it has met with misfortune while all underground, let us see all there may remain to be seen. I am a worker, a tombstone mason, anxious to please everybody's and jolly glad when Christmas comes is once a year. You are a poor Jewist, anxious to police no bobbies, and tullybaddy solely when 'tis time to go home, Gin. We cannot say eye to eye. We cannot smile nose from nose. Still, one cannot help noticing that rather more than half of the lines run north-south in the Nemesis and Bukhara directions, while the others go west-east in search from Malaises with Balgorod, for, tiny tot though it looks when chupnistling alongside other incunabula, it has its cardinal points for all that. These ruled barriers, along which the traced words run, march, halt, walk, stumble at doubtful points, stumble up again in comparative safety, seem to have been drawn first of all in a pretty checker with lampblack and blackthorn. Such crossing is anti-Christian, of course, but the use of the home-born shillelagh as an aid to calligraphy shows a distinct advance from savagery to barbarism. It is seriously believed by some that the intention may have been geodetic, or, in the view of the Kenya, domestic economical. But by writing thitherways end to end and turning and end to end hitherways writing, and with lines of letters littering up, and louds of letters lettering down, the old see me to my place and Jupet back again from Ham let rise till Hum lit sleep, where in the waste is the wisdom. Another point. In addition to the original sand, pounds powder, drunkard paper, or soft rag used, any vet or inhanger in our sod social can see the scene for himself. A reef tofty odd room, the cherries spluttered on the one carrick, a darkadishin of woos from Albania, any god's quantity of raki, a Portugal and some box setting out on the sofa. You remember the sort of softball Sakamoto used to tell us when we were all Berivias or Nippies and Messers. It has acquired accretions of tertious matter whilst loitering in the past. The tea-time stained terminal, say not the tag mummer, or our show's a failure, is a cozy little brown study all to oneself, and, whether it be thumbprint, made mark, or just a poor trait of the artless, its importance in establishing the identities in the writer complexes, for if the hand was one, the minds of active and agitated were more than so, will be best appreciated by never forgetting that both before and after the Battle of the Boyne it was a habit not to sign letters always. Tip. And it is surely a lesser ignorance to write a word with every consonant too few than to add all too many. The end? Say it with missiles then, and thus arabesque the page. You have your cup of scalding sauchung, your taper's wax and drop, your cat's paw, the clove or coffee nail you chewed or champed as you worded it, your lark in clear air. So why, pray, sign anything, as long as every word, letter, pen stroke, paper space is a perfect signature of its own? A true friend is known much more easily, and better into the bargain by his personal touch, habits of full or undress, movements, response to appeals for charity, than by his footwear, say. And, speaking in Tiberias and other incestuous salacities among gerontophils, a world of warning about the tender-loined passion hinted at. Some soft-nosed peruser might mayhem take it up erogeneously as the usual, perfectly usual case of spoons. Prostituta in herba plus dinky pinks, deliberatively somersaulting off her bisexical at the main entrance of curate's perpetual soutane suit, with her 1-2-C and avo, who picks her up as gingerly as any barn-bearer would, to feel whereupon the virgin was most hurt, and nicely asking, "Where have you been so grace a-mauling, and where were you chased me, child? Be who, father potential?" And so wider. But we, grisly old psychos, who have done our unsmiling bit on Alice's, when they were young and easily frightened, in the penumbra of the procuring room, and what oracular compression we have had, very privately of course, to apply to them, could, did we care to sell our fee-bought silence in camera, tell our very moist-nostriled one that father, in such virgated contexts, is not always that undemonstrative relative, often held up to our contumacy, who settles our hash bill for us, and what an innocent all-abroad's adverb such as Michaely looks like can be suggestive of under the pudendoscope, and, finally, what a neurasthene nympholept, endocrine pineal typus, of inverted parentage with a preprocessing trauma present in her past, and a priapic urge for congress with agnates before cognates, fundamentally is feeling for under her lubricitous meiosis when she refers with liking to some feeler she fancies face. And, we could, as, what need to say? 'Tis as human a little story as paper could well carry, in effect, as Sing Sing so Salaman so suing to Switwittles, while as unbluffingly blur to brusque blunt as an Ezra, the cat's meter, the meter's cat's wife, the meter's cat's wife's half better, the meter's cat's wife's half better's meter, and so back to our horses, for we also know, what we have perused from the pages of I Was a General, that shooting up of Bullskliversen by Schottenbaum, that Father Michael, about this red time of the White Terror, equals the old regime, and Margaret is the social revolution, where cakes mean the party funds, and dear thank you signifies national gratitude. In fine, we have heard, as it happened, of Spartacus intercellular. We are not cognate yet, dead hand. We can recall, with volunteers, the froggy Jew and sweeter far 'twere, now with things in Dumble's fair city, ere 1 more year is o'er. We turned our coats to the good gay tunes, when from down swords the sea merged with Oldough's guns, and answer made the bold O'Dwyer. But, est modest in verbos. Let a prostitute be, whoso stands before a door and winks or parks herself in the fornix near a Mackerson wall. Sin, 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 sin. And the curate, one who brings strong waters. Gin, 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 gin. But also, and dinna forget, that there is many a sleeps between Summit Home's first and Morenausland's last, that the beautiful presence of waiting Kates will until life's be more than enough to make any milk mike, in the tonguage of sweet tarts, punch hell's hate into his twin Nicky, and that Maggie's tea, or your majesty, if heard as a boost from a born gentleman is. For if the irritated lingo gasped between kick sheets, however basically English, were to be preached from the homo sapiel mouths of vicar church wardens and metaphysicians in the row and advocatos, all voyous, demi-voyelles, languos, lesbielles, dentelles, gutter howls, and furts. Where would their practice be? Or where the human race itself? Were the Pythagorean sesquipedalia of the Panepistemion, however apically volapaki, grunted and grumbled, Ichabod, Habakkuk, Opanov, Ugamic, Hapaxel, Gomenon, pff, over country styles, behind slated dwelling houses, down blind lanes, or, when all fruit fails, under some sacking left on a coarse cart? So hath been love, 'tis, and will be, till wears and tears and ages. Thief as the night, steal we the air, sure thiner leavest mine. Here, O here, insult the fair, traitor, bad hearer, brave. The lightning look, the birding cry, awe from the grave, ever flowing on the times. For Agosaria Jordan water, now God's sun shine on Menday's daughter. A good clap, a fore-marriage, a bad wake, tell hell's well. Such is Manowife's lot of lose and win again. Like he's grown whiskers on whose chin again, she plucketed them out, but they grown in again. So what are you going to do about it? Oh dear. If Junus she saved. Ah, oh. And if Yulon he proved. The old Stoliolum. From Kiki Kine to Mishmishishile, and a Jean Baptiste to a Brulo. It is told in sounds in utter that, in signs so adds to, in universal, in polyglatteral, in each auxiliary neutral idiom, sordomutics, florilingua, shelter focal, flay flutter, a concubine, a prostitute, stress Arab, air purse, and anything at all. Since not seen Annette trip palmy ways with hi-ho Harry, there's a spurt-fire turf a kinder kindling, when oft as the soof blows her peaties up, and a clay pot wet for thee, my cities, and talker till Tibbs has eve. And what though, revelous life, proving I the death of Ronaldsus, when wind power wine has bucked the kick on poor one man? Biliousness has been biliousness during millions of millenniums, and our mixed racings have been giving 2 hoots on 3 G's for the grape, wine and brew, and Peters in New Amsterdam, and Paoli's where the pools go, and drums smelt his end for him, and he dined off South American. It would give one the freer even were one a normal kettle liquor. This old world epistola of their weatherings and their marryings and their buryings and their natural selections has tumbled down to us fresh and made at all hours, like an old Carpente. As I was hotten me souser. Aha. As you was called in your Dutchy hovel. Ho ho. She told the tale of her tune. Woohoo. Now, capnemancy and infusionism may both fit as tight as 2 trivets, but while we, in our free state, holding to that pre-statute in our charter, may have our irremovable doubts as to the whole sense of the lot, the interpretation of any phrase in the whole, the meaning of every word of a phrase so far deciphered out of it, however unfettered our Irish daily independence, we must want no idle dubiosity as to its genuine authorship and holus bolus authoritativeness. And let us bring these seas to beakerings on that clink, almond bottler. On the face of it, to vault back to our desultory horses, and for your roughshod mind, baffle lost bull, the affair is a thing once for all done, and there you are somewhere and finished in a certain time, be it a day or a year, or even supposing it should eventually turn out to be a serial number of goodness gracious alone knows how many days or years. Anyhow, somehow and somewhere, before the book flood or after her ebb, somebody mentioned by name in his telephone directory, Cocolanius or Galotaurus, wrote it all down, and there you are, full stop. Oh, undoubtedly yes, and very potably so, but one who deeper thinks will always bear in the back bucus of his mind that this downright there you are and there it is only all in his eye. Why? Because, sovereign Babel, if it goes to that, and dormer window gossip will cry it from the housetops, no surelier than the writing on the wall will hew it to the mob of men that mote in the main street. Every person, place, and thing in the chaos-moss of Allah anyway connected with the gobbly-dumb Turkery was moving and changing every part of the time. The travelling inkhorn, possibly pot, the hare and turtle, pen and paper, the continually more and less inter-misunderstanding minds of the anti-collaborators, the, as time went on as it will, variously inflected, differently pronounced, otherwise spelled, changeably meaning vocable script signs. No, so help me Peto, it is not a miseffectual hyacinthinous riot of blots and blurs and bars and balls and hoops and wriggles and juxtaposed jottings linked by spurts of speed. It only looks as like it as damn it. And sure, we ought really to rest thankful that at this deleteful hour of Dungfly's dawning, we have even a written on with now dried ink scrap of paper at all to show for ourselves, tear it or leave it. And we are love to ourselves, as the soul fisher said when he let the cat out of the boat. After all that was lost and plundered of it, even to the hitmost coinings of the earth, and by all means, after a good ground kiss to Terra Casa, and for war's luck, our left-offs flung over our homoplate. Cling to it, as with drowning hands, hoping against hope all the while that, by the light of Philophosi, and may she never forsake us, things will begin to clear up a bit one way or another within the next quarrel of an hour, and be hanged to them as 10 to 1 they will too, please the pigs, as they ought to categorically, as, strictly between ourselves, there is a limit to all things, so this will never do. For, with that farmfrau's foul flair for that flayfell fox-feeder, the calamites columitas calling for calamitous calamitans, who that in scrutinizing marvels at those indignant blue blushes, those so prudently bolted or blocked drowns, the touching reminiscence of an incomplete trail or dropped final, the gossipy thread reels, around 1,000 whirligig glorioles, prefaced by, alas, now illegible airy plume flights, all tiberiously embellishing the initials majuscule of Earwicker. The meant-to-be baffling Chrismon Trilithon sign E, finally called after some hesitancy heck, which, moved contra-watchwise, represents his title in Sigla as the smaller d, fondly called, following a certain change of state of grace of nature, alp or delta, when single, stands for or tautologically stands beside the consort. Though for that matter, since we have heard from Cathay circles how the hen is not merely a tick or two after the 1st, 5th, 4th of the 2nd, 8th, 12th, Xiangqiang, Hong Kong, Saint-Genul, but yearly the other and 30th of the 9th from the 20th, our own vulgar 432 and 1132 irrespectively, why not take the former for a village inn, the latter for an upside-down bridge, a multiplication marking for crossroads ahead, which you like pothook for the family gibbet, their old four-wheatler for the Bucker's field, a tea anyway for a tryst someday, and his one side is missing for an all-blind alley leading to an Irish plot in the Champ de Mars, not? The steady monologi of the interiors, the pardonable confusion, for which some blame the cudgel and more blame the suit, but unthanks to which the peas with their caps awry are quite as often as not taken for pews with their tails in their mouths. Thence your Christopher Columbus, hence our cat Cresbyterians. The curt witty watty dashes never quite just right at the trim trite truth letter. The sudden spluttered petulance of some capitalized middle, a word as cunningly hidden in its maze of confused drapery as a field mouse in a nest of colored ribbons. The absurdly bull's-footed bee, declaring with an even plainer dumb show than does the mute commoner with us, how hard a thing it is to be born a gentleman. And look at this pre-pronominal fun-for-all, engraved and retouched and edge-wiped and pudding-padded, very like a whale's egg farced with pemmican, as were it sentenced to be nuzzled over a full trillion times forever and a night, till his noddle sink or swim by that ideal reader suffering from an ideal insomnia. All those red-raddled obeli, cayenne pepper cast over the text, calling unnecessary attention to errors, omissions, repetitions, and misalignments. That, probably local or personal, variant megas for the more generally accepted majesty, which is but a trifle, and yet may quietly amuse. Those supercilious-looking criss-crossed Greek e's, awkward-like perched there and here out of date, like sick owls hawked back to Athens. And the GGs too, Jesuistically formed at first, but afterwards genuflected agrily towards the Occident. The Ostrogothic hagiography affected for certain phrases of Etruscan stable talk, and, in short, the learning betrayed at almost every line's end. The head strength, at least 11 men of 32 palfrey craft, revealed by a constant labor to make a gimel pass through the eye of an iota. This, for instance, utterly unexpected sinistro-gyric return to one peculiar sore point in the past. Those thrown-open W's, of an early Mediterranean origin, whether man chooses to damn them agglutinatively, loo, too, blue face-ache, or ilvoro pee-hole, or, ganz kurz, toppelfouls, seated with such flop-right-down determination and reminding us ineluctably of nature at her naturalist, while that fretful fidget F, the hornful digamma of your Borna barbar, rarely heard now, save when falling from the unfashionable lipses of some heterosexual, but used always in two bold-faced print types, one of them as wrong-headed as his Claudian brother, is it worthwhile interrupting to say? Throughout the papyrus by our copyist as the revise mark, stalks all over the page, broods, sensation seeking an idea, amid the verbiage, gaunt, stands dejectedly in the diapered window margin, with its basque of bay leaves all aflutter about its forks frogs, paces with a frown, jerking to and fro, flinging phrases here, there, or returns, inhibited with some half-halted suggestion, dragging its shoestring. The curious warning sign before our proto-parents ipsissima verba, a very pure nondescript, by the way, sometimes a palm-tailed otter, more often the arbutus fruit flower leaf of the cane apple, which paleographers call a leak in the thatch, or the Ironman ing per wisp through the hole of his hat, indicating that the words which follow may be taken in any order desired. Hole of Aaron man the head through the whispering his hoe. Here keen again and begin again to make sound sense and sense sounds kin again. Those haughty pitched disdotted H's, easily of the rariest inner straw, as most of the jaywalking eyes we do plow into half. Unconnected, principial, medial or final, always gems in the jam sahib, as pipless as threadworms. the innocent exhibitionism of those frank yet capricious underlinings, that strange exotic serpentine, since so properly banished from our scripture. About as frequent as a wetter hand now as to see a right-headed lady-white don a cork horse, which, ever longer and of more morosity, seems to uncoil so spirally in its invincible insolence and swell lacertine lazily before our eyes under pressure of the writer's hand. The ungainly musicianlessness so painted in sculpting self-sounder, as blackheartful as a podatus, and dumbfounder, uproarious as 10 canons in skelterfuge. The studious omission of year number and era name from the date, the one and only time when the writer seems at least to have grasped the beauty of restraint. The lubricitous conjugation of the last with the first, the gypsy mating of a grand stylish grave digging with second-best buns. An interpolation. These munchables occur only in the Bootherbroth family of manuscripts BB equals Cod 4, Pap 2, Brec 11, Lun 3, Din 17, Sub 30, Full Up 1690. The scholiast has hungrily misheard a dead man's taller as a muffin bell. The foreshortened ampersands under which we can glimpse at and feel for ourselves across all those rush years the warm, soft, short pens of the quick scribbler. The vocative lapse from which it begins and the accusative hole in which it ends itself. The aphasia of that heroic agony of recalling a once-loved number, leading slip by slipper to a general amnesia of misnomering one's own. Next, those R's. Those R's all bellical. The high priest's hieroglyph of cattle tom and otsbones, wrested red-handedly from our hallowed rubric prayer for truce with booty. Oremus pro Romulo. And rudely, from the fane's pinnacle tossed down by Porter to within an aim's ace of their quatrain of ruby jets among those who ask without the temple, nor since rose distillery burned, have quaffed night's fire-filled cup, but jig-jog-jog as day the dice-box throws. Whang! Loyal six I lead, out with your heart's blood, blast ye! And there she's for you, sir! Whang her, the fine woman, rouge to her lobster locks, the Rossi. Whang! God, and O'Mara has it with his ruddy old villain Rufus. Wait, whang! God, and you're another. He hasn't, for there's my spoil 5 of spots as trumps. Whang! Whack on his pig's king's kisser for him. K.M. O'Mara, where are you? Then, coming over to the left aisle corner down, the cruciform postscript from which 3 basia, or shorter and smaller oscula, have been over carefully scraped away, plainly inspiring the tenebrous tongue page of the Book of Kells. And then it need not be lost sight of that there are exactly 3 squads of candidates for the Crucian rows awaiting their turn in the marginal panels of Column Killer, chucked in their 3 ballot boxes, then set apart for such hanging committees, where 2 was enough for anyone, starting with old Matthew himself. As he, with great distinction, said, then, just as since then, people speaking have fallen into the custom, when speaking to a person, of saying 2 is company, when the 3rd person is the person darkly spoken of. And then that last labio-lingual basium might be read as a suavium, if whoever the embracer then was wrote it with the tongue in his, or perhaps her, cheek, as the case may have been then. And the fatal droop-head-windle slope of the blamed scrawl, a sure sign of imperfectible moral blindness. The too muchness, the far too manyness of all them 4-legged M's. And why spell dear God with a big thick D? Why, oh why, oh why? The cut and dry X and Y's form of the semi-final. And 18thly or 24thly, but at least, thank Maurice, lastly, when all is said and done, the Penelopian patience of its last paraph, a colophon of no fewer than 732 strokes, tailed by a leaping lasso. Who thus at all this marveling, but will press on hotly to see the vaulting feminine libido of those interbranching ogham sex up and in sweeps, sternly controlled and easily repersuaded by the uniform matter-of-factness of a meandering male fist. Duff Mugley, who now may be quoted by very kind arrangement, his electroscophonious photosensation under suprasonic light control may be logged for by our none-too-distant futures as soon as tone values can be turned out from chromophile almost limited at a millicentime the microamp. First called this kind of pedagogy partnership the Eulichian or tetrachiric quadromain, or ducks and drakes, or deads and dishes perplex. Wie some forestallings over that studium of sexophonologistic schizophrenesis, volume 24, pages 2 to 555. After the well-informed observation, made miles apart from the master by tongue-toyed, cf. Later frustrations amongst the neo-Muglian teachings above the semi-unconscious PASM, that in the case of the little-known periplic bestseller popularly associated with the names of the wretched Marina, Trian Foreign Davidoff, our plum-sucked pattern-shaped keeper, a Punic Admiralty report, from Macpherson's ocean round by the tides of Jason's cruise, had been cleverly capsized and saucily republished as a Dodecanesian Baedeker of the every tale a treat in itself variety, which could hope satisfactorily to tickle me gander as game as your goose. The unmistaken identity of the persons in the Tiberias duplex came to light in the most devious of ways. The original document was in what was known as Hanno or non-Hanno's unbrookable script, that is to say, it showed no signs of punctuation of any sort. Yet on holding the verso against the lit rush, this new book of Morses responded most remarkably to the silent query of our world's oldest light, and its recto let out the piquant fact that it was but pierced but not punctured, in the university sense of the term, by numerous stabs and foliated gashes made by a pronged instrument. These paper wounds, 4 in type, were gradually and correctly understood to mean stop, please stop, do please stop, and oh do please stop respectively, and, following up their one true clue, the circumflexuous wall of a single-minded men's asylum, accentuated by bits of rock eng a sant lich einer, yard inquiries pointed out that they had been provoked by the fork of a grave professor at his breakfast table, acutely professionally piqued to introduce the notion of time upon a plane surface, by puncting holes in space. Deeply religious by nature and position, and warmly attached to thee, smear bread and batter and him and new laid ills, it was rightly suspected that such ire could not have been visited by him, broad Fresor Prendergast, even unwittingly, upon the ancestral pneuma of one whom, with rumour, he venerated shamelessly at least once a week at Cocksburg Common as his apple in his eye and her first boy's best friend, and, though, plain English for a married lady, misled heaps by the way, yet when some peerer or peeress detected that the four-leaved shamrock or quadrifoil jab was more recurrent wherever the script was clear and the term terse, and that these two were the self-same spots naturally selected for her perforations by Dame Partlet on her dung-heap, thinkers all put, grown in water unspillful pratyland only, and a playful fowl, and musical me by not you in any case, 2 and 2 together, and, with a swarm of bisses honey-hunting after, a sigh for Shem, oh, the petty bonny rouge, separated modest mouths. So be it. And it was. The letter-making of the exploits of Fjorgen Camhelsen when he was in the Quinnes country with Soldru's men. With acknowledgement of our fervour of the first instant, he remains years most faithfully. For postscript see spoils. Though not yet had the sailor sipped that sup, nor the Humpher foam to the fill. And fox and geese still kept the peace around l'auberge du Père Adam. Small need after that, old Jerome Solem, old Huff Snuff, old Andy Cox, old Ole Cassandrum, for quizzing your weekenders come to the RQ with. He shoots off in a hiss, muddles up in a muss-mess, and his holds a dismantled noon drunkard's son. Howbeit we heard not a son of sons to leave by him to oceanic society in his old man without a thing in his ignorance, Talco McHooley. And it was thus he was it every time, that son, and the other time the day was in it, and after the morrow. Diarmuid is the name is on the writing chap of the Psalter, the juxta juncture of a dear maid, and he passing out of one desire into its fellow. The daughters are after going and looking for him, Torba's nice lookers of the fair necks. Wanted for millinery servants to Olderly's person by the Totty Askinses. Formerly confounded with a mother. Maybe growing a moustache, did you say, with an adorable look of amusement? And uses no-class billiard halls with an up-and-down ladder? Not Hans the Courier, though had he have only had some little laughings and some less of cheeks, and were he not so worried by his bulb of persecution, he could have, aye, and would have, as true as Essex Bridge. And not go fab go gossip, I declare to man. No. To all's much relief, one's half hypothesis of that Jabberjaw ape among the showering chestnuts of Brusanose was hotly dropped, and his room taken up by that odious and still today insufficiently mal-estimated note-snatcher, Shem. Kack, pfui bosh and fighty, much earny, Gaspotin, says you. The penman.